Hello. Do you believe in fictional characters? Do you believe in Jesus? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in the devil? Have you ever taken a quiz on Facebook about which fictional character from which TV series you relate to the most? Do you identify as one of the characters from the TV shows? Do you say that person's a bit of a so-and-so character from that TV show or otherwise? How invested in fictional characters are you? Just going to put this over here so there's light. Light in the dark. So, are fictional characters more important to you than real ones? If you're an artist or an author, then maybe. But you'd probably know the difference between the fictional and the real ones, if you had any sense. If you're an actor, yeah, you'd probably be invested in fictional characters while you're on stage or filming the movie. Then maybe you'd have some sense and go back to your normal life. Here's where it gets really trippy though. There is a lot of investment made in fictional characters by so many different people, it's not even funny. Whether it's the devil or Iblis, whether it's Rama or Krishna, Vishnu or Buddha, Jesus, maybe, just maybe, it's even Ahura Mazda or Ahriman. It could be any number of beings from the ancient Chinese pantheons. It could be Loki or Thor. Maybe it's any number of the ones from Africa or South America or North America. These are all religious ones, but there's a plethora of fictional characters sold to us every day by Hollywood, by the TV, by even the news, by even the people that present to us. Fictional characters. What's a fictional character? If you performed on stage and you prepare, or for a movie, and you had to prepare that character for some time, learn the script, maybe do some method acting classes or something like that. There's a scene from The Simpsons, actually, which, by the way, is all fictional characters, where instead of Apu at the Quickie Mart, there's a male actor there who's supposedly well known in the USA, and he's depicted in the cartoon as working at the Quickie Mart so he could, as a form of method acting, which is to say the actors might try and, practice getting into character before they do their performance by doing some of the things that the character supposedly did. In that case, the movie that guy was going to perform in for was a guy that was working at a service station, so he got a job at a Quickie Mart to practice method acting. The line between reality and fiction blurs there, because for a time their physical bodies are actually doing that for a job. They are actually working at the Quickie Mart. They are, temporarily, the cashier and not the actor. And so, for the regular person at the Quickie Mart who actually works there and isn't an actor and isn't doing it part-time for acting, they have all the concerns of a cashier. They don't have the other job of acting to go to afterwards. They might have other circumstances, maybe a second job. We don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's the only job they could get. Maybe it's part-time or casual. Maybe they own the Quickie Mart. Whatever the case might be, their particular psychological makeup as they experience that situation is in fact different from the actor who's there just pretending. And so, as it turns out, when you talk about things like the simulation hypothesis, which is nothing more than an agenda to make the world a more callous and cruel place, and even turn people into cyborgs, would like to take into consideration that if you thought the world was completely fictitious, that everyone was just an avatar, acting for some grand cosmic play. Ah, indeed, like Shakespeare said, the world is all but a stage, and we are all but players, each one taking our characters in turn in the 7 stages of life. What an interesting, what a piece of work is man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculties, to still think that the world was fictitious. But isn't that a symptom of enlightenment? Isn't it in part of enlightenment to acknowledge that the world is but illusory? There's fiction to it. There's some kind of fiction. Or does illusory really mean that things are not as they seem? So it's nonetheless real, but we're not perceiving it accurately. There's some kind of illusion, some kind of dance of variables that are difficult to discern. They need to be peeled apart. And once we've mastered that, we've mastered the illusion. How wonderful. You could get a Nobel Prize in physics or something like that. Maybe, or maybe not. There's different ways of looking at the same thing, isn't there? One man's simulation of a computer game is another person's nightmare. Take, for example, the viewer Elliot Rogers. We don't know if that particular individual actually believed the world was a computer game when he, pretended that the people he was killing was going to respawn, perhaps. We don't actually know. What we do know is that he was a toxic narcissist, chock full of incel programming associated with a cult that has taken the grievances of men and turned them into a nightmare, resolving absolutely none of them and creating problems for others, as cults are wont to do. So what are cults? Cults are based on fictional characters. The TV is about fictional characters. Obviously, the AI videos about the Essenes or the Masons or whatever the heck they are also fictional characters. What do they call them? The Archons and the what was the other one? They go on about and the story of the Essenes. Apparently, Jehovah was one of a whole bunch of brothers who were these miscreants or some bitch named Sophia, and they thought they were God, but they weren't, and really Earth was imprisoned for them, and they've been imprisoning people since, and Sophia will get you out of it. So a woman created the problem by creating them, but she's also your solution, apparently, which is kind of an inversion of the logic of a man created the problem and imprisoned you, but he's also your salvation out of it. Either way, Christ and Sophia sound like utter fucking stupidity. Anyway, it sounds like, worshipping your aggressor no matter what, right? And they are fictional characters. Why would you worship a fictional character for? I mean, do you do that? Do you absolutely worship a character that is made up? It's surprising how easy it is to misidentify with a fictional character. It's surprising how easy it is for people to do. It's not even genuine psychosis for people to do it. If you have a look at it, in psychology, they have terms like the ideal versus the real versus the false versus the misperceived when it comes to people's apprehension of each other. So, in the case of borderline personality disorder, in addition to things like polarized thinking and unstable emotions associated with polarized thinking, which leads to an unstable sense of identity for those people, they also idealize other people and then devalue them. So in other words, they put someone up on a pedestal, and then when invariably that person is unable to meet their projected ideals or who that individual is supposed to be, obviously, their perception comes crashing down and start devaluing and go, oh, they're fucking toxic, they're evil, they're all nasty. And the actual story is, of course, is that they were never, ever either of those polarities. In fact, whoever they were completely different from however that person perceived them at all. Entirely different. Because how we perceive others is not how they actually are. Okay? How we perceive others is merely projections of our worldviews, projections of our temporary emotional states, and projections of whatever spiritual information is floating around and bothering us at the time, as well as projections that they are sending to us to create illusions about who they might or might not be. It is very unlikely that you'll ever perceive someone as they actually are, even if they invade your head and you weren't yourself anymore. Even then, you might not accurately perceive them at all. You'd probably find certain things apply, such as some of them, not all of them, would believe in fictional characters and struggle with the idea that they're not real, particularly with the idea of Jesus, the idea of Jesus Christ saving you from the devil. It's like, well, no, we're going to ask you a question about that one. I mean, they're both fictional characters, so why should one fictional character save you from another? Is that not like a war between what's that, Ragnarok or something like that, one of those Marvel or DC characters, the Avengers or something like that? Are you talking about that? But you're talking about the Christian version of it. I mean, do you realise it's fairly straightforward to create comic book characters? I mean, they don't have to be fantastic ones. The drawings might not even be sufficient either. However, it's really not that difficult. It's much more easier an art form than realistic painting, for example, or even impressionism. The comic book art form is simple, cartoonish, because it is. It's a fucking cartoon. So this insult that anyone could be mislabeled as a cartoon character when they're clearly not, okay, when they are supposed to be their own independent, flourishing human being with their own worldviews and ideas, it's almost like that, like the kind of person who gets treated like that is someone who was a wayward traveller who got caught up in the ridiculous psychoticism of a group of individuals who didn't realise that they were merely projecting and occupying spaces that they didn't belong in and having opinions about people they didn't even know. And we're still appraising them in a manner that was unjust and unfair as a consequence, or shall we say, devaluing them, when they ought not to be devalued at all, when none of the appraisals of that individual or individuals was correct in the first place. And that, my friends, is exactly what it's like, unfortunately, for women everywhere. That's what they go through all the time. That is what native persons went through when the colonial empires invaded their countries. They went through the same thing as well. It is no coincidence that even though misogyny amongst native peoples and black peoples and whatever, and the pox, as the Yanks call it, okay, that imaginary fictional, that fictional demographic called the POC. Why a person of color is a fictional character? Because you fictionally tried to separate people and say that some people have colour and some people don't. Well, you can see this face, can't you? This face has colours. How is this physical body's face not a person of colour? They have colours. Okay? It more resembles some of the European colours than the non-European ones, does it? Oh, okay then. Oh. Well, that's bloody silly, isn't it? Sounds like a fictional category. Oh, where's the albinism? No offence to albino people, but where's the albinism? There's no albinism there. So it's a fictional character, fictional character. There's this black men, the white men. They're all fictional characters. Women are always like this. It's a fictional character. Men are always like this. It's a fictional character. Christians are always like this. It's a fictional character. Jews and Masons and, Buddhists and whatever else. People's fathers and mothers and whoever else. They're always like this. They're fictional characters. These categorizations of people into bigoted stereotypes based on the list of perceived worldviews and variables that you have are all fictional characters. Now, if you're running a survey or something like that and you need to collect that data because, it might be specifically important to the situation at hand, and that's slightly different. But when you're talking about the generic political conversations that people have, those are, in fact, fictional characters. A schizophrenic is a fictional character as well. So is a person with borderline personality disorder. Heck, depression is a fictional character. Anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, DID, All of these things are fictional characters. Okay? And why are they fictional characters? Because people haven't been able to tell the difference between the broken limb and the patient. And that's because the broken limb is attached to the patient, usually. And so they presume that the patient's broken somehow. What's not necessarily true. Part of them has been damaged. Your job as the healer is to repair that. Again, another social role, healer, a fictional character. So, warrior, protector, all these other things, titles and titles, aristocracy, world leader, the rich and the powerful, the famous and the beautiful. These are all fictional characters. Subsequently, it's not surprising then that a complete misapprehension of Jung's idea of archetypes was used and has been used by serial malfeasant idiots to misapprehend situations. You cannot turn around and say someone has the Christ archetype or that someone has the hero archetype. That's not how it works. Okay. It did not find universal themes in the collective consciousness of humanity. He found themes within his own cultural community, and it was perceiving social roles or different tendencies or things that people around him were doing, and he was trying to classify it to create his own cult, okay, which was the Freud and Jung cult. Okay, that's one of the historical pieces of evidence they say. Okay, and so the idea of Christ, for example, doesn't exist anywhere outside of Europe and Mesopotamia until you get, and mostly Europe actually, until you get to the point where the Europeans invade the rest of the world. And they go, what's this fucking Christ crap? They didn't have a clue. What's the devil? Don't know what you're talking about. So, as far as they were concerned, Christ, the devil, God, and all the rest were fictional characters. So, perhaps for Europeans, Baiami was a fictional character. Perhaps for Europeans, the Bunyip is a fictional character. Perhaps for Europeans, the Seven Sisters are fictional characters. Well, you know what? You know how it is. They're only fictional characters if they're not from your particular culture. If they're from your particular culture and your particular worldview, they're not fictional. They're real as anything. And that, unfortunately, as an idea, as a hypothesis, as a suggestion, seems to allude to the possibility that psychoticism is the basis of human psychology. Okay, misidentification with the fictional with the real is somehow at the basis of human psychology, and moreover, the selective discrimination of when and where something may or may not be fictional or may not be real. So let's retreat into total atheism then. Go on. It's all illusion. None of it's real. Not even the nose on this face. Not even the phone being used to record this, and not even you, dear viewer, watching it. You don't exist either. Get fucked.